Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was more than just Hollywood's golden girl. She was a labyrinth of secrets and contradictions. On the surface, she embodied charm and sensuality, but beneath, her life was a tapestry of turmoil. In 1962, her shocking death at just 36 years old was officially ruled a self-inflicted death from a substance-related incident. Yet, whispers of foul play and political entanglements refused to fade. Monroe's involvement with powerful figures, including John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy, hinted at deeper, untold stories. Less known is how her diaries, filled with cryptic notes about government secrets, vanished mysteriously after her death. Adding to the enigma, her therapist allegedly pressured her into therapy sessions that blurred the lines between treatment and exploitation. Her Hollywood stardom concealed a life of relentless control by studios and manipulation by the powerful men in her life. Her death remains an unsolved puzzle, steeped in suspicion and intrigue. Speaking of untimely exits, another Hollywood figure left a trail of questions in his wake. George Reeves. George Reeves was Superman to millions of children, but his reality bore no resemblance to the invincible hero he portrayed. On June 16, 1959, Reeves was found dead in his bedroom from a self-inflicted tragedy. Officially deemed a self-inflicted death, the case was far from closed. Unexplainable bruises on his body and the absence of fingerprints on the gun raised eyebrows. Behind the camera, Reeves was trapped in a cycle of financial instability and professional typecasting. He was entangled in a web of romance and betrayal, most notably with Toni Mannix, the wife of a powerful MGM executive. Her rumored involvement in his death sparked theories that refused to die. Reeves's descent into despair was fueled by a career he believed had pigeonholed him, leaving him trapped in a costume he could never take off. Just as Reeves's death remains shrouded in mystery, another Hollywood tragedy hints at secrets lost to time. Jean Seberg. Jean Seberg's rise to fame with the French New Wave film Breathless made her an icon, but her life was anything but glamorous. By 1979, Seberg was found dead in her car in Paris, a victim of an apparent substance-related incident. While her death was ruled a probable self-inflicted death, the truth digs deeper. Targeted by the FBI for her support of civil rights movements, Seberg became a victim of a smear campaign under the COINTELPRO program. False stories planted in the press about her personal life shattered her reputation and plunged her into emotional despair. Her financial contributions to the Black Panther Party and her outspoken activism turned her into a political target. Behind her captivating smile lay the scars of betrayal and surveillance. Seberg's death marked the silencing of a voice that dared to challenge the system. Like her, another star's light dimmed too soon under equally haunting circumstances. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge shattered racial barriers in Hollywood, yet her groundbreaking achievements were a double-edged sword. Nominated for an Academy Award for Carmen Jones in 1954, Dandridge's talent was undeniable, but the roles she was offered were often riddled with stereotypes. Her personal life mirrored this struggle, with turbulent relationships and mounting financial problems. Dandridge was found dead in her apartment in 1965, the victim of a substance-related incident. While some claim it was accidental, others suggest it was a self-inflicted death, as she was battling deep depression. Her trailblazing career came at a price. The racism of 1950s Hollywood relegated her to a life of isolation and unfulfilled potential. Hidden within her tragic narrative is the bitter irony of an industry that celebrated her talent but never fully embraced her. The sacrifices of her legacy remind us of another trailblazer whose story ended in sorrow. Lupe Vélez. Lupe Vélez was a firebrand on and off the screen, earning the nickname the Mexican Spitfire. Her career flourished in the 1920s and 1930s, but her life unraveled with equal intensity. In 1944, Vélez was found dead in her Hollywood home after overloading on sleeping substances. The public was fed a sensationalized version of her death, with myths claiming she drowned in her toilet. In truth, Velis was pregnant by actor Harold Ramonde, who refused to marry her. Feeling betrayed and desperate, she penned a heartfelt note before taking her life. What the public didn't see was a woman battling loneliness and a career that boxed her into comedic roles far from her dramatic potential. Velis's life and death reflect the cruel paradox of Hollywood, a place where dreams are built only to crumble under their weight. The next tragedy pulls back another layer of the industry's unforgiving nature. Peg Entwistle. Peg Entwistle became a haunting symbol of shattered dreams. Known primarily for her stage work, she moved to Hollywood seeking stardom but was met with relentless rejection. On September 16, 1932, Entwistle climbed the 50-foot H of the Hollywood land sign and leapt to her death. Her body was discovered 2 days later with a tragic note confessing despair over her failing career. What few know is that just days after her death, a letter arrived offering her a pivotal role as a woman driven to take her own life, a haunting parallel to her real-life tragedy. Even more chilling, Entwistle had achieved moderate success in Broadway circles before Hollywood's unforgiving glare consumed her. Her death remains a powerful reminder of how the industry's promise of fame can spiral into devastating disillusionment. Yet hers was not the only life cut short beneath the weight of shattered stardom. George Sanders. George Sanders was the very embodiment of sophistication on screen, yet behind his cultured exterior lurked a profound personal darkness. Best known for his Oscar-winning performance in All About Eve, his roles often mirrored his real-life cynicism. By the 1970s, Sanders' health and career had declined, and he struggled with increasing isolation. On April 25, 1972, he was found dead in a hotel room in Spain, having consumed a lethal dose of substances. The note he left was as haunting as it was direct, stating he was simply bored with life. But the truth was more complex. Sanders' close friends later revealed his escalating dementia and physical decline had left him hopeless. Another overlooked fact is that his brother, actor Tom Conway, also died under mysterious circumstances a year later, sparking eerie parallels between their fates. Fame had turned sour for Sanders, yet his descent was far from unique in classic Hollywood's darker chapters. Carol Landis. Carol Landis had it all: beauty, talent, and charm. But behind the glamour was a life plagued by heartbreak. Rising to fame in the 1940s with 1 million BC, Landis was not just a starlet, but a dedicated USO entertainer during World War II. Her personal life, however, was a web of failed marriages and tumultuous relationships. On July 5, 1948, she was found dead in her Brentwood home from a substance-related incident. What most don't realize is that her body was discovered by Rex Harrison, with whom she had been having an affair. Harrison, still married, reportedly refused to leave his wife, devastating Landis in her final days. More unsettling, reports suggested that multiple handwritten notes were left behind, some addressed personally to Harrison, yet he never attended her funeral. The circumstances surrounding her death left lingering questions about betrayal, secrecy, and emotional devastation behind Hollywood's closed doors. Her tragic fate mirrors that of another star caught between love and despair. Charles Boyer. Charles Boyer, a screen legend of the 1930s and 1940s, captivated audiences with his suave European charm in classics like Algiers and Gaslight. His personal life, however, unraveled in a heartbreakingly silent tragedy. Boyer's wife, actress Pat Patterson, was his lifelong love. But when she passed from cancer in 1978, his carefully composed exterior shattered. Only 2 days later, Boyer ended his life with a massive substance overload. Some suggest it was more than just grief. Boyer's son Michael had died by a self-inflicted death just a decade earlier, a pain from which the actor never fully recovered. Even in his final days, Boyer refused interviews, hinting at an overwhelming burden of personal loss. His death, so closely tied to the loss of those he loved most, became a grim testament to the silent suffering that can fester even in those we view as the epitome of elegance. Another life marked by profound personal anguish soon followed. Ross Alexander. Ross Alexander's story is one of Hollywood's lesser-known tragedies, yet no less profound. Rising to fame in the 1930s, he was a promising Warner Brothers star, appearing in Captain Blood and Flirtation Walk. Yet, behind his youthful charm lay a painful private life. Alexander struggled with his sexuality at a time when Hollywood's moral code demanded secrecy. His first wife, actress Alida Friel, took her own life in 1935, an event that cast a long shadow over his emotional state. Less than 2 years later, on January 2nd, 1937, Alexander died by a self-inflicted tragedy in his home. Though his death was officially ruled a self-inflicted death, the industry's rigid image policing and Alexander's battle with his identity were rarely acknowledged in public. The silence surrounding his struggles speaks volumes about the pressures forced upon stars to conform, a fate echoed all too often in Hollywood's golden age. Just as Alexander's life unraveled under scrutiny, another tragic figure followed a similar path. Richard Farnsworth. Richard Farnsworth's career spanned over 6 decades, but his death left behind a far more complex story than Hollywood revealed. Beginning as a stuntman in classics like Gone with the Wind and The Ten Commandments, Farnsworth later transitioned into acting, earning an Academy Award nomination for The Straight Story in 1999. Yet, behind his professional success was a battle he kept hidden. Diagnosed with terminal bone cancer, Farnsworth endured unbearable pain in his final months. The shocking reality is that his death was not just about physical suffering. His decision was calculated, a final act of control. On October 6, 2000, at age 80, he died from a self-inflicted tragedy at his New Mexico ranch. What most don't know is that Farnsworth left behind a note expressing his determination to avoid a prolonged, undignified death, a rare glimpse into the mental strength he carried even in his final hours. His tragic exit mirrored a level of control over his fate that another star was denied. Dorothy Hale. Dorothy Hale was a socialite more famous for her death than her life, a fact hauntingly captured in one of the most controversial paintings ever created. Hale was known in 1930s New York for her beauty and connections, but financial hardships after her husband's death left her struggling. On October 21, 1938, she jumped from the window of her 16th floor apartment at the Hampshire House in Manhattan. What few realize is that her death inspired artist Frida Kahlo to create of Dorothy Hale, a painting so graphic that it disturbed even those closest to her. Claire Booth Luce, who commissioned the piece, was reportedly horrified by the explicit depiction of Hale's broken body. Yet the artwork was far more than shocking. It immortalized her final moments in a way few could turn away from. Hale's death, though tragic, revealed the eerie intersection of art and personal suffering. Just as her image was immortalized on canvas, another star's tragedy would echo through forgotten history. Susan Peters. Susan Peters was a rising star, her career promising greatness before fate intervened with cruel precision. Nominated for an Academy Award in Random Harvest, Peters was on the brink of Hollywood royalty when a hunting accident in 1945 left her paralyzed from the waist down. The injury didn't just end her mobility, it shattered her career. Studios distanced themselves, unable to reconcile her disability with their limited storytelling. Though she attempted a comeback, even starring in a wheelchair-bound role in The Sign of the Ram, the roles dried up. The most heartbreaking part? She wasn't just abandoned by Hollywood. Her husband, actor Richard Quine, left her as well. By 1952, her health was rapidly deteriorating, and she died from complications related to anorexia, likely a slow, self-destructive spiral fueled by grief and career collapse. Her death wasn't the result of one event, but a series of relentless personal losses. The industry's silent rejection left a void that echoes in another story of erasure. Florence Lawrence. Florence Lawrence was the original movie star, a silent film icon long before fame had rules or protections. Often credited as the first publicly named screen actress, her influence transformed early cinema. But behind the success was a life defined by exploitation. Studios profited off her image while denying her credit, and when her career faded with the rise of sound films, she was discarded by the industry she helped build. In 1938, suffering from chronic health problems and financial ruin, she took her life by ingesting ant poison in her modest Hollywood apartment. What few remember is that Lawrence was also an inventor, having developed the first mechanical turn signal for automobiles, a creation that would go uncredited and uncompensated. Her death was not just personal. It was a stark indictment of an industry that consumed talent and discarded it without remorse. Her fate mirrors yet another tragic story of forgotten stardom. Helen Twelvetrees. Helen Twelvetrees was a star made famous not for triumph, but for tragedy. Rising to fame in early talkies like Millie in 1931, she became a poster child for the suffering woman roles so prevalent in early Hollywood melodramas. Yet, her personal life seemed to echo the characters she played. A string of failed marriages, including an abusive relationship with her second husband, mirrored the anguish of her on-screen personas. As roles dried up, Twelvetrees retreated from Hollywood entirely, relocating to a quiet life in Pennsylvania. However, in 1958, at the age of 49, she was found dead from an overload of sedatives. The haunting detail? She had been battling depression and had spoken of feeling forgotten by the very industry she once ruled. Her death was more than an end. It was the final chapter in a life written by the very genre she helped popularize. And still, her story wasn't the last heartbreaking chapter from Hollywood's golden era. Ona Munson. Ona Munson lived a double life, one of glittering Hollywood success and agonizing personal despair. Immortalized for her unforgettable role as Belle Watling in Gone with the Wind, Munson played the sharp-tongued, compassionate madam who defied conventions. Yet, behind the bold performances, Munson wrestled with profound personal turmoil. Struggling with chronic health issues, failed marriages, and suppressed relationships, she lived in an era where being openly bisexual could end a career. Though married to director Edward Buzzell, Munson was linked romantically to multiple women, including actress Alla Nazimova, whose own career had been destroyed by similar rumors. By 1955, the pain became too much. Munson was found dead in her New York apartment, having consumed an overload of substances. The public heard whispers of declining health, but few acknowledged the truth. Munson's career, once promising, had crumbled under the weight of personal isolation and an industry unwilling to accept complexity. Her final act was a silent plea, echoing the struggles of another forgotten actress who faced a similar fate. Isabel Jewell. Isabel Jewell's face was unforgettable in the 1930s, but by the end of her life, Hollywood had long since turned its back on her. Once a vibrant supporting actress known for her roles in Gone with the Wind and A Tale of Two Cities, Jewell was the embodiment of the feisty, fast-talking side character who stole scenes. But like so many, fame was fleeting. As roles disappeared, so did the safety net that stardom had once provided. By the 1950s, she was financially destitute and struggling to find work. What most people never knew was how far her struggles went. Jewell had been arrested multiple times for shoplifting, a desperate attempt to survive as the money dried up. The real tragedy came in 1972, when she died alone in her Los Angeles home from a substance-related incident. The details were haunting. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of foul play, just a forgotten star whose light had quietly faded. The cruelty of her story echoed countless others from Hollywood's golden age. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our newest videos. Thanks for watching.